I am a East Palo Alto resident. I've lived there almost all my life. I went to public schools there, so I did the Ravenswood School District from elementary school to middle school to high school, and then went on to graduate, and I went off to UC Berkeley with the full ride, luckily. So as an undergrad at UC Berkeley, I studied legal studies because I wanted to go to law school initially. Took that pre-law route, and then somewhere along down the lines of my undergrad journey, this felt like law school wasn't what I wanted to do. Law school was more so of applying the law and not so much of creating it. So I looked into other programs, and that's when I really got into public policy. And public policy I was able to learn that, I can have a direct impact locally, depending on where I want to do policy, right? Whether it's at the local level, at the state level, or at the county level. But that's where I really saw myself getting more interested in like city politics and all that. So it was just taking classes in public policy that eventually led me to get more involved in my community. So as an undergrad, I would come back to East Palo Alto, and I would see all these changes going on, the newly constructed Amazon building, all these developments. And on the newspaper, I think at the time I read it, if I read it correctly, I think it was like 27 developments coming to East Palo Alto, something crazy. And then I was like, wow, like things are really going to change, and we need somebody, like, what are we doing as a city to prepare, because I know my parents probably are not even aware that these developments are coming, but they see the changes happening, right? So I got more involved, I got more invested. Back in February 2019, I actually spoke at one of the special retreat meetings for city council. And I was like, hey, like, I'm an undergraduate at Berkeley. I'm super interested in learning more about opportunities and experiences where I can get involved with the city and, kind of get my foot inside the door and understand how I could come back to my community. Because, at the end of it all, after I graduated, I wanted to come back and do something. So I went out, I reached out trying to learn about an opportunity. And unfortunately, I found out that, we didn't have anything in place. We didn't have an internship program in place where students like myself, even high school students at a younger age, can get involved with city politics or anything pertaining to the city departments. I reached out to a bunch of them because I got a bunch of business cards. I only got response from like one or two people, which was really upsetting to see that I'm out here putting myself out. And I even reached out and just to get a one response or two response from all the people that gave me their business cards. So the only person that did reach out, his name was Guido. He was the head of the planning department at the time. He unfortunately moved on to somewhere else, but he kind of led me or gave me the avenue to get involved with the city. He told me about, the planning department, the planning commission opening up their position, and then I applied, and then luckily got city council was able to grant me, the position. And since then, I've just really been more involved with the city and trying to understand where the city is right now, what it's missing, and where it's heading, most importantly. So as a planning commissioner alternate, I've been there for like a year and a half now. I've gone to conventions in Sacramento to meet other commissioners and other council members and to see how are they dealing with development in their cities. And it's just been a learning experience from that point on. So I'm super grateful for that opportunity and, for city council at the time for granting me that position. So my experience and my qualifications more so on that planning department and studying public policy, as well as working in a nonprofit. So I've worked a lot throughout my college journey and throughout my time. I've worked in many nonprofits and just sort of understanding how things could get done or change could happen if we all just kind of work together. And that's kind of the platform and an experience that I want to bring to East Palo Alto.
One thing you emphasized in your campaign is streamlining the process for building out affordable housing. Can you tell me exactly what that looks like or what that entails? What are you proposing to do to streamline the process, as you said?
Of course. So as a planning commissioner alternate, I understand that the process to building housing or any project development is extensive. Like I think for multi-residential family units, it's like 18 months if all goes well, right? From the beginning, applications are on time. The people on the planning commission, on the planning department are reviewing, everything's getting approved on time, all this stuff. If that all goes well, 18 months is the cap that it takes to, build housing. And in those 18 months, we lose residents on a monthly basis that they can't afford to live there, right? Especially now with COVID and impacting their income and all this stuff. So my way of thinking is, hey, why don't we take those 18 months and see how we can shorten it, right? If we have the proper application, if we're meeting all building codes and health codes, and then, for example, if the city owns the property, which they do, one of the properties that they do, why aren't we streamlining that process? Why isn't affordable housing on the top of our agenda? And why are we still pushing it below all the other 27 development projects coming to East Palo Alto? So my way of streamlining is, okay, if it's meeting all the qualifications, all the requirements, why aren't we building faster, right? And so that's my way of thinking. How can we streamline the process? And the thing with city council is that they have the power to do that, right? They own a property at 965 Week Street where they're going to build affordable housing. They own that property. So if we control the approval process and we control the land, why isn't that? It's already been 2 years since we bought the property and we haven't even, cut the grass at least, for example. Why haven't we started doing something to start building that affordable housing? And then and then as a planning commissioner, I understand that it's a process. The application process is just way too long, and we need to find a way to streamline that process, shorten the amount of time, especially for property and land that we own as a city. Like I think we need to, I don't know, like get a little bit more up to date of what we can do to help our residents out. So that's what I mean by streamlining the process.
So how much affordable housing do you think should be in East Palo Alto? Do you have a percentage in mind?
I don't have a specific percentage, I mean, the more the merrier, but the reality is that, when developers come to East Palo Alto, that they're gonna see our 20%, requirement that, amount of units that need to be affordable housing. I'm pretty sure they're gonna get scared away, or they're gonna be discouraged from it. So I don't have a specific percentage. I think the percentage that we have right now is okay, but we can do better, and we need to find a way to include this in a package where the developer is not being scared off of building housing, instead wants to go with office spaces, right? Or how do we go from office space and convince them to do mixed use, which that means is that we can do retail at the bottom and housing on top. So how do we make this, I don't know, how do we package up and make them the offer, or let them know that this is what we can do, and have them meet us halfway? So I don't have a specific percentage. I wish I did. But the more the merrier, right? We need more affordable housing in East Palo Alto, even though East Palo Alto is already leading the way with affordable housing. I know we can do better, and I know that as a city council member, we need to set those expectations for our neighboring cities in Menlo Park and Palo Alto, who are not meeting their fair end of the bargain, right? So how do we communicate that with them? How do we have the leaders going out there and asking them, or telling them how they can also meet us with creating more affordable housing in their city? So, it's a process,
Yeah. So you don't have a percentage in mind, then do you know how you would prioritize between, say, affordable housing and market rate housing by any chance?
How to prioritize? I think we should always prioritize the affordable housing, regardless of what's getting built there. Affordable housing is what we need for our residents to ensure that they can live here and work and stay in East Palo Alto, most importantly. How to set a priority? I think we also need a balance, right? Like, not all of them are going to be affordable housing, and we as a council, or I know that as a council, I can't make the decision on my own and say, hey, I want any housing options that come by are just going to be strictly affordable housing. I can pitch that, I can answer that, but the reality is I have another set of team members that we're going to work with to really come up with something that makes sense and works for East Palo Alto.
Do you know what the right type of commercial development is? You kind of spoke on how if anyone develops here, they have to hold their end of the bargain. Can you elaborate on that? And how much commercial development do you propose on bringing in the city?
Right, the city already has preset designations and preset zoning areas where we're going to be accepting office spaces, which I agree. We have some at 2020 Bay Road down the street by Cooley Landing. There's going to be a 5-story building there. We have the units across on the 4 corners on University. There's another place where they want to get creative and do laboratories. I believe they want to rebuild our library, and they want to do retail at the bottom, mixed use, retail at the bottom and housing on top. I think we need more projects like that, that bring a little bit of everything, and so that our community is not only strictly about housing, but also offering jobs and opportunities for our youth and for our residents here in East Palo Alto, and for our small businesses, right? We can't, if we're strictly going to do housing and not do commercial, or office spaces in general. Like we're not providing more opportunities for East Falls residents to grow. So the city already has those preset designations. It's just a matter of like who's going to build and what is it that they're going to build. For example, another one is on University, behind the Chevron. There's another development that's going there. So it's just a matter of like how do we extract the most benefits for our community. And I think the current city council has been doing a pretty decent job at negotiating those benefits. But I feel like we need to be a little bit more aggressive when it comes to getting our fair share. Because for these developers, a chunk of money is just pocket change to them. And for us, we think it's going to make a real big difference. But when we really put it into perspective, that money is nothing to us either. It's going to go by quickly. And then here we are left with no benefits. So just more mixed use buildings, I want to say. But as I mentioned, the city already has designated spots and zonings for office spaces, commercial and mixed use. It's just a matter of who's going to move in and what are the benefits that we're going to get from that.
What role do you think tech companies should play in the future of the city? Do you think the tech companies have sort of an obligation to provide financial support to the city's infrastructure? What do you think they should be doing if they start coming into East Palo Alto, as they already have?
Yeah, definitely. I think these tech companies, if they really want to come into these neighborhoods or our neighborhoods, since they're already there, but any other tech company that wants to come by, they need to understand who East Palo Alto is and what they're impacting, what city they're impacting. I'm not saying I would wish that they would have an obligation to provide some financial assistance to East Palo Alto, like they've done in Menlo Park. I always feel like East Palo Alto has been left out of the conversation and left out of the benefits, or left with like the crumbs of what the package that Menlo Park is receiving. And what I want to do is build those relationships, like if we don't have somebody that's really advocating in these spaces like Facebook or Google and advocating for East Palo Alto residents, advocating for our city, to get funding in X, Y, or Z, or for opportunities for our youth, we need leaders like that. And if you're not out there actively asking and seeking this assistance, like we're not going to get it. We shouldn't be sitting around expecting for Facebook to throw us some money for our affordable housing or for our rent crisis that we're dealing right now with COVID. Why aren't we actively asking for these things, knowing that they have the money and resources to do so, right? And I feel like what these tech companies should be doing is also connecting with the organizations that already exist in East Palo Alto. We have so many great nonprofits and services in East Palo Alto that can use the assistance and already doing the work. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. Like if you just collaborate with these organizations in East Palo Alto, I feel like we can do a lot of great things for our residents. So what I would ask and wish is just more collaboration and more creating a coalition where we can all sit down and have a conversation about how we're going to tackle these issues as a team. We need the nonprofits, we need the small businesses, we need the faith-based organizations, we need the local residents input, and we need city council as well as these tech companies that are coming in and work and get us to work together, most importantly. And how do we come up with solutions, as I mentioned? I think that's the best way.
Do you think the city should continue welcoming more tech companies?
I think as long as these tech companies, like I mentioned, come with that spirit and energy that they want to actually help East Palo Alto and not only for their benefits, I think we should. East Palo Alto needs as much help as they can get, and we needed the opportunities for our youth and for our future and our current residents, to start getting them out of that, the income bracket that they find themselves in, and how do we get them into better paying jobs, right? So if we don't allow tech companies to come in, or even in our surrounding area, we're not going to be able to provide those jobs for our residents or secure those jobs for our residents. So so my question is, they're not here yet, right? Not all of them are here yet. We have Facebook, Google's are far away, but when we're creating all these buildings for commercial use, and these tech companies are going to look at East Palo Alto as a focal point where they want to move into, what are we doing till that moment gets here, until those buildings are up? How do we get our residents to be prepared for these jobs so that when these companies come in, we can advocate and negotiate a better deal? Instead of 30% of local hire of East Palo Alto, we can now make it 50%, right?
And talking about jobs, can you tell me how you would create more jobs in East Palo Alto for East Palo Alto residents? As I said, you mentioned how you want to hold developers accountable for holding up their end of the deal. how do you do that? How do you make sure something like with the first source hiring ordinance the city already has doesn't happen again?
Right. No, the first source hiring policy ordinance was I think it was created with good intention, right? It was meant that for whoever wants to come in has to provide job opportunities for at least 30%, you know, of their of their workforce. The issue was that we didn't have nobody to hold them accountable, right? Do we have somebody designated to say, hey, you got 50 employees, let's make sure, or 100 employees, let's make sure 30 of them are East Palo Alto residents. Or we didn't have the resources either to say, okay, yeah, we're going to create this program, but our residents are clearly not ready to fulfill these jobs or roles that are coming into East Palo Alto. So, you know, like I mentioned, how are we going to create jobs, right? How do we, the question should be, how do we prepare our residents for these jobs? Now, Facebook came in and provided jobs for many East Palo Alto residents, but it was the basic jobs, you know, it was the security jobs, the chefs, the janitors, the jobs that don't require that much technical skills, right? And then as a city, we need to partner up with organizations like Job Train that are preparing our residents for IT jobs, and you know that could prepare them for other types of jobs in these tech companies. But we just haven't really created that pathway for Job Train to expand, or even, you know, given, you know, just something more active to get our residents to get up to date. And it's going to be hard, you know, because everyone learns different. There's a language barrier. You know, 70% of our population is Hispanic, but I don't think it's impossible either. You know, we just need a plan. East Palo Alto needs a plan of how we're going to get more jobs into East Palo Alto that are not just those basic jobs that I mentioned. You know, like the chefs, the security guards, etc. We need our team to be getting. I mean, we need our residents to be getting paid more and get those entry level jobs at Facebook or these tech companies.
This pandemic's not going to go away anytime soon, at least not before the election. Do you have a plan to sort of mitigate the impact it's had already upon the community?
Yeah, I mean, the impact is clear. You know, our unemployment rate skyrocketed. Our residents are struggling to pay rent, and you know that's, you know, yeah, we as a state, we passed the law that, or the Gavin Newsom passed the law that, you know, the a rent moratorium will be extended until I want to say February, I believe, or one of those days next year. But when that time comes, all the debt that you have been accumulated, you're gonna owe, right? The landlords, there's gonna be a tsunami of evictions. So how do we as a city prepare for that and ensure that our residents are not being evicted? Because that eviction comes with long-term effects, right? They won't be able to apply for loans, or they won't be able to get future housing. So the eviction process in itself and its impact is detrimental. So as a city, what I believe we should do is extend the moratorium, especially extend an ordinance that we extend that moratorium so that we can get our residents back on their feet and ensure that they have some sort of income. That means creating a service that checks in with the people who are asking for money for rent relief. Not only getting more grants, like that's already a fundamental that we should be doing, getting more grants from the state, county, you know, from these tech companies. That's already the given, but what are we doing to prepare them to come back and make a recovery, right? So what I think we should be doing is, yeah, we're going to offer you assistance. Yeah, we might even, I mean, you know, maybe we even might be able to pay for half of your rent debt, but what are we doing to get you back on track and to get you to reduce that debt? You know, I would love for landlords to have a conversation even with landlords and say, hey, can we completely erase this debt that this tenant has, right? You know, the sad reality is probably going to be no, right? But just initiating that conversation and negotiating with landlords on the city's behalf of how we can come up with a solution so that this tsunami of eviction that California and everyone in the world is expecting does not happen, especially in East Palo Alto, where a high percentage of them are renters. So I think as a city, we need to be a little bit more active when it comes to how are we going to recover from COVID-19. And the how, it's difficult to say, you know, I don't think if we all had an answer, we would have been done it, right? If Gavin Newsom already had an answer, then we would have been initiated it, but we don't, right? So it's different times. It takes creative solutions for these modern problems. So the way I see it is, we just need to try a little bit of everything and ensure that, you know, when this eviction or tsunami evictions do happen, it's the least impactful that it can ever be. And we did everything we can, and it's not this huge number of people just being evicted all at once. We need to make sure that the impact is mitigated, if not non-existent. Right?
What about for seniors? This has impacted them, especially they have to
Right.
be homebound. Do you have any plan to sort of help seniors during this time and improve their resources, what little resources they might have?
Right. Yeah, no, definitely. I think our senior population, we should not be forgotten. They're the ones that, sort of have led the history of East Palo Alto, and to be left behind, especially during these hard times of COVID, I think they should definitely be in our plan. I think what we should be doing is just connecting more with our senior citizens and understanding like the resources that are here in East Palo Alto for our senior citizens, and understanding where the gap is, or what is the need right now, especially during COVID. But if we, like you mentioned, they're our most vulnerable, they're isolated, so I don't feel like we have a really good understanding of what they need. Yeah, we know they need the resources, they need funding as well, more than ever. But I think we should be a little bit more active as well and engaging with them and ensuring that they are being helped, because they are our most vulnerable residents in East Palo Alto.
I'm wondering what you think, or maybe how you think the city should rethink East Palo Alto Police Department's role in the community, or should it be re-examined? And what do you think needs to be looked at?
Right. Yeah. It's like I mentioned, some interesting times, with police brutality, and people are just not having it anymore. The term defund the police has been tossed around and catching national attention. And I think, East Palo Alto Police Department currently gets, I want to say, like $12 million from us. And it's a great chunk of our budget and resources that could be going to something else. But I feel that in order to defund the police, or even go in terms, so let me just back up. Defund the police means reallocating resources from the police and to services and organizations that can help police with like mental health, domestic violence, youth problems, drugs, like all these things that the law enforcement in our community are dealing with should be, dispersed and given to the proper professionals to deal with. So that's what defund the police means, reallocating resources or money to all these resources. And what I think, before we can even defund the police in East Palo Alto, we need transparency. We need to know, first of all, where is our money going? Where is this 12 million being invested? For example, if they're buying ATVs, we don't need ATVs in East Palo Alto. I'm just saying that's an example. I'm not saying that's what they're buying, but we need transparency as a community of where our money and this money is going towards. Our police department gets paid really well, so we want to know where those 12 million is actually being allocated towards. Secondly, that's the transparency we need. Secondly, we need to build trust before we defund them, right? Do the police department trust their community, and does the community trust the police department? The most likely answer is no. So how do we start building trust? My way of building trust is making sure that your first interaction with a police officer as a community member isn't a confrontation. It isn't because your neighbor's calling the cops on you because your music's so high. It isn't because you're arguing with your wife or something, or something along the lines. The first interaction should not be confrontational. It should be at a community event, specifically geared towards community members meeting police officers. That's how you start building trust with the community, and it takes initiative from the police department to get to know their community, and their community to get to know their officers. That's one way of building trust. The second way we must build trust is through a commission that oversees police conduct. There's this term that's also been tossed around with defund the police. Who's policing the police, right? When we go out there and make a complaint, yeah, it goes to the chief police officer, but what does the process look like for this police chief officer to review the conduct of one of their officers, right? We don't know that process. We don't even know if there's repercussions for his behavior and in character, and acting out this way. So what I'm thinking of doing is creating a commission of residents that oversee that conduct. And hey, if this officer X has multiple conducts of, racial profiling, or just being rude or racist, and that even to that extent, why isn't that officer being under review more strictly? So that's why I want to create a commission that oversees that too. Like, who's policing the police? We should have residents feel comfortable, like, hey, I made this report a week ago, didn't hear back, and now I'm coming to the commission saying, hey, this incident happened, I wasn't okay with it, and this commission is now involved of direct interactions with the police officer, with the chief officer. Secondly, this commission should also be what's it called? Should be in the hiring process. We shouldn't allow just any police officer to come into our neighboring. We need people that understand who East Palo Alto is and our history and the people that they'll be serving. You know, so what does that look like? You know, just reviewing and ensuring that they understand our values as a community, and then from there, when that trust starts beginning, that we are hiring officers that believe in our city and want to serve our city and are here for our safety and not to not to spread fear in us. And then that's when we start building trust and transparency, and then we can start beginning thinking about defunding, because it's no longer going to be needed. We're going to need to allocate all that money to all the resources and services in East Palo Alto that already exist and are being underfunded. And then so that's my way of thinking about defunding the police. And with this whole thing that's going on in the community, before we can defund, before we can do anything of that, we need transparency and we need accountability, and most importantly, we need to build trust, and then we can start defunding.
You mentioned in the previous candidate forum that you want to revisit the city's climate change plan, set new goals. Could you elaborate quickly on that?
Yeah, really quickly. I think in 2002, the city set a climate action plan that by 2020, they want to reduce 15% of our gas emissions in East Palo Alto. We're in 2020, we still haven't seen results, whether we met that benchmark. And if we have, let's set a new robust goal that, reduces it the next time by 25%. Or why don't we set goals that, we become an energy and water efficient city? So that's what I mean by revisiting those plans. I think the only thing we've done some implementation from that original climate action plan from 2002, but it's due for it to be updated, to current standards, I guess you can say. Governor Newsom himself is completely removing gas vehicles by 2035. So we are, as a state, we're very progressive when it comes to climate action plan. So what is East Palo Alto doing to match that energy and match that progression, I guess you can say. So how do we prepare our residents to even make that change as well? So that's what I meant by reviewing our climate action plan. It was from 2002. We're in 2020. A lot of things happen. There's new technology. There's new ways to make that happen and meet those goals. So that's what I meant by revisiting our climate action plan.
Do you have any particular goals in mind, for example?
I want our city to be more water and energy efficient. So what that means is, the city is very limited on water. So how are we teaching and educating our community members to use less water, and how are we applying that to new development in East Palo Alto as well? The second thing is energy, right? There's this thing about solar panels that have become relatively cheaper than its initiation in the beginning. In the beginning, only the wealthy were able to do it, but now there's programs and different incentives that encourage homeowners and people to build solar in their homes. So how do we as a city support causes like that as well? How are we preparing for electric vehicles as well? We don't have that many other than Tesla by the McDonald's. Like, that's all we have for electric vehicles. So how are we, moving towards not only thinking about the next year, but the next couple of years and generations of East Palo Alto? And that's just a small portion of what I'm envisioning, as well as more sustainable building in our new development.
You also mentioned in your campaign statement that you want to address something that always comes up in conversations about the city, traffic congestion.
Right.
How do you want to address that, or how do you plan to address that?
Traffic is everywhere, man. I'm not gonna say I have the solution and I have the secret to fix, our traffic issue in East Palo Alto, especially on University Avenue, before COVID, of course. But I think our traffic congestion is just because of poor leadership and poor planning, and leadership as in the sense that it's neighboring projects and development that has impacted East Palo Alto's traffic. We can't say because of the Amazon building, that's strictly the reason University has overflooded. We can't really pin that on ourselves. We got to pin it on Facebook and Menlo Park, who, Facebook is expanding crazy. So that's a big majority of the reason why our traffic just got really bad. And as well as Palo Alto and Stanford, they've expanded their campus by so much. So all these different regional developments are impacting our traffic congestion. So what are we as leaders doing to go into these cities and ensure that East Palo Alto has a seat at the table, and we are able to advocate for our residents' quality of life at the end of it all? Because it should not take our residents 45 minutes just to get out their homes and into the 101, right? So more advocacy, maybe even seeking impact fees from these regional developments and cities, neighboring cities. And then, but also at the end of it all, it's how do we come together as a team and fix our traffic congestion? You know, we can't, yeah, we can pinpoint and point fingers like, hey, you caused this and you caused this, and because of your poor planning and you didn't have a good transportation plan. No, it's more so how do we, okay, now we have this issue, how do we fix it? You know, I really like what Menlo Park did with their overpass, the Willow Bridge. They widened it, they added a lane, they switched their lights, they added bike lanes, they added sidewalks on both sides, and then we look at our overpass and it's like a, you're fighting for your life when you make that crossover that bridge. You know, there's residents dodging cars and all this stuff going on, and I've seen way too many accidents happen there. So where, you know, where are we with our development or our expansion? You know, like where are we with, you know, who's gonna pay for our bridge? Right? How did Menlo Park already get something like that? Well, clearly maybe through Facebook, but why are we left to deal with the traffic and no upgrades for our residents? You know, so it's a little bit of everything. It's a little bit about collaborating, most importantly, and understanding how we as a cities like Palo Alto and Menlo Park can be helping each other mitigate traffic and find an alternative way so it's not running through our cities. I'm pretty sure Menlo Park is having conversations about the traffic on Willow. Why aren't we sitting in and listening to what their solutions are, or why aren't we being invited so that their traffic is not being redirected to us, you know, and it's always just overflowing. So like I said, I don't have the solution, but I do know what we need to be doing moving on. And one of them is for sure, you know, expanding our bridge and seeking ways to mitigate future traffic, because it's only going to get worse once all these other developments come in. So what are we going to do?
What sort of resources do you think the city needs to invest in for East Palo Alto's kids? What do you think is missing?
Yeah, it's a really good question. More opportunities and fields of interest, that things that they're interested in. And, you know, I think we always want to come up, we as a, you know, when you get older, I think you always want to, or not even like, or even professional, when you hire people to come and look at East Palo Alto from the outside in, trying to say, hey, this is what your kids need, instead of directly asking our kids, what is it that you're interested in? What is it missing? It? What are we missing East Palo Alto? When you redirect that energy and ask directly from the people that are missing, you know, resources or programs or whatever it is that they need, when you start asking them directly, we can be able to create programs that are missing in East Palo Alto. And some of those are just opportunities, man. Like we need our leaders to be advocating to the Facebooks, to the Googles, to the Amazons, like, hey, can you secure 5 internship opportunities for our kids from East Palo Alto, high school students or college students? And we need leaders to be more advocate in that matter. And that's what I want to be. I want to be going in there and be like, Facebook, can you hold off 5 internship opportunities this summer so that it's strictly for East Palo Alto students, so that our kids are not competing with well-off kids from Los Altos or Palo Alto, you know, competing with real like people who are probably qualified and have the resources growing up, you know, to compete against other interns. But why can't we have advocacy in that manner? And as well as other programs that kids can get interested in. You know, not everyone, the college is not for everyone, and this workforce is not for the working experience and the tech and the engineering is not for everyone. And we need to understand that we're living in different times where people can become famous off YouTube, right? Or off TikTok. Like it's different times. So how do we gauge your interest? Like instead of like getting mad at a child because they're not good at math, but they're good at singing. So why aren't we doubling down on their strengths instead of their weaknesses? Why aren't we like, hey, you want to be a singer? Hey, we have this program here in East Palo Alto where you can have a studio time and start singing. Boom, now we have our next Rihanna or Beyonce from East Palo Alto, right? So it's just a little bit of more asking the kids what they need and believing in them, especially in the times that we're living now. And of course, education is always important. I'm not saying like just completely dump your education and, you know, pursue full on artist mode, but just even giving them the slightest chance to just even pursue that or get a feeling of what that process is like can be life-changing for a child. And then they can realize whether it's for them or not, and then whether they want to go full-time or not, or go the safer route and go to school. Yes, I do.
What do you think's missing right now in City Council that you hope to fill? And why do you think the city should vote for you this November?
I think what we're missing is a new perspective, a new energy, and new ideas in City Council. I think, you know, our incumbents have done an amazing job to get East Palo Alto to where they are now, you know, and, you know, coming back from the water moratorium that was a couple years ago, you know, to now having all these developments to deal with, and just making all these changes are really great. But what we do need is just a new energy and new direction to what East Palo Alto is capable of doing. And I just feel like as a city, we've had this this mindset of complacency and just being okay with what the work that they're doing when we need more people doing even a little bit slightly more. It's not about just showing up to the meetings and doing your part, your fair share of the work. It's also going a little bit more above and beyond, like I mentioned, and advocating for, as I would wish to do for our youth, advocating for, our residents' quality of life when it comes to traffic mitigation. It takes a little bit more energy that I feel me as a candidate or any of the newcomers that are coming have the drive to just take it a notch, take it to a whole nother notch or level, I guess you can say. And that's what I would wish people to see when I talk about my issues or the problem in East Palo Alto. I bring energy and I bring, I'm open to listening to other people's ideas, and I bring like the team spirit. And I have the education background and, like I mentioned, public policy, and I understand and I've experienced with the planning commission of what East Palo Alto needs and where it should be heading. So that's why I believe people should vote for me, because I understand what's going on. I'm not coming in here, not knowing a single thing about what's going on in the city.